Rain poured down in relentless sheets as Ethan Cole trudged home after a grueling double shift at the diner. His boots splashed through puddles, his worn jacket clinging to his shoulders, but all he could think about was his daughter, Ava, and her sleepy smile waiting at home. Life as a single dad was an endless struggle of long hours, unpaid bills, and lonely nights, but Ethan never complained, because every sacrifice meant keeping Ava safe and fed. Taking his usual shortcut through the narrow alley behind Mason Street, he was halfway through when a sound stopped him cold. It was faint at first, barely audible over the rain, the soft, broken whimper of someone in pain. His pulse quickened as he turned toward the noise, his eyes scanning the darkness until they caught a flicker of movement near the dumpster. There, huddled against the cold brick wall, was a woman, bloodied, bruised, and barely conscious. Her once elegant coat was torn, her shoes missing, and her hair matted with rain and dirt. Ethan's heart clenched. He knelt beside her, his voice low but steady. "Hey, can you hear me?" he asked, shaking her shoulder gently. The woman stirred, her swollen eyes opening just enough to meet his. "Please, don't let them find me," she whispered, her voice trembling with terror. Ethan froze, looking over his shoulder into the empty alley. Whoever had done this to her might still be out there. "It's okay, you're safe now," he said softly, slipping off his jacket and wrapping it around her shaking form. She clutched his sleeve weakly, her lips quivering. "Ethan Cole," she whispered his name as if she knew him. He stiffened. How did this stranger know who he was? The woman tried to speak again but her strength gave out, and she went limp in his arms. Ethan hesitated for only a moment before lifting her up, feeling how light she was, as if she hadn't eaten in days. Rain beat against his back as he carried her through the streets to his small apartment above the repair shop. When he finally laid her on the couch, he looked down at her face under the dim light, and something about her features tugged at a distant memory. She was a stranger, and yet somehow, she felt familiar. When morning light filtered through the thin curtains, Ethan found the woman still asleep on his couch, her breathing shallow but steady. He had cleaned her wounds as best as he could with the small first aid kit he kept for emergencies and covered her with an old blanket. The bruises along her arms were deep, and a faint cut traced her cheek, but even beneath the damage, there was something delicate about her, like someone from a world far removed from his. When she finally stirred awake, confusion flashed in her eyes. She sat up abruptly, wincing in pain. "Where am I?" she demanded, her voice hoarse and shaky. Ethan kept his tone calm. "You're safe. I found you in the alley last night," he said, setting a glass of water on the table beside her. She stared at him warily, as if deciding whether to trust him. After a long silence, she whispered, "You shouldn't have helped me. They'll come after you too." Ethan frowned, unsure what to make of that. "Who's they?" he asked, but she shook her head quickly, panic flickering across her face. "It doesn't matter. Just, please, don't get involved." She tried to stand but nearly fell, and Ethan caught her by the shoulders. "You're not going anywhere like this," he said gently. "Whoever hurt you won't find you here." She hesitated, then nodded slightly, too weak to argue. He made her a cup of tea and left her to rest while he cooked breakfast. From the kitchen, he heard her voice again, softer this time. "You live here alone?" He turned and smiled faintly. "Not exactly. My daughter, Ava, lives with me. She's 6. The woman's expression softened. "You're raising her alone?" Ethan nodded, his smile tinged with sadness. "Her mom passed away years ago. Been just the two of us since." The woman looked down at her trembling hands. "You've always been kind," she murmured. Ethan blinked, puzzled. "Always?" he asked, but she quickly looked away. Before he could question her further, she removed a small, silver locket from around her neck and pressed it into his palm. "Keep this safe," she said quietly. "If anything happens to me, promise you'll open it." He was about to ask why when the sound of screeching tires echoed outside. The woman's face drained of color. "They found me," she whispered, her voice breaking into panic. Ethan's heart pounded as he peeked through the window blinds. Two black cars were parked across the street, their tinted windows glinting under the afternoon sun. Men in dark suits stepped out, scanning the building like predators on a hunt. "We have to move, now," he whispered. The woman, Isabel, as he would soon learn, clutched his arm, fear flashing in her bruised eyes. Without wasting another second, Ethan guided her through the back door, leading her down the narrow fire escape behind the repair shop. The men's footsteps echoed somewhere nearby, their voices sharp and cold. They crouched behind an old van, both trembling in the silence that followed. Finally, when the danger passed, Ethan turned to her. "You need to tell me what's going on," he said firmly. "Who are you, and why are they after you?" She hesitated, her breathing uneven, before whispering, "My name is Isabel Hart." Ethan blinked in disbelief. Hart, as in HartTech. The company was famous, its name plastered across news headlines for years. She nodded slowly. "I founded the company. But I discovered that my fiancé and several board members were laundering millions through it. When I confronted them, they tried to make me disappear." She swallowed hard, her voice cracking. "They thought they killed me last night." Ethan stared at her, struggling to process the revelation. "You're saying those men," she cut him off with a pained nod. "Yes. My own people." As they hid in the shadows, Ethan's mind raced. "Why me?" he finally asked. "You said my name last night. You knew me." Isabel's eyes glistened. "Years ago, before everything changed, I volunteered at a community garage. You were there, fixing that old van for single parents. You offered me your coffee, remember?" Ethan's breath caught as a faint memory resurfaced, an elegant woman in a simple coat, smiling gratefully at him while oil stained his hands. "That was you?" he murmured. Isabel smiled weakly. "You were kind to me when no one else was." Ethan's fingers tightened around the locket she'd given him. On instinct, he opened it, and froze. Inside was a tiny photograph, Isabel, holding a baby girl with a man in a mechanic's uniform. His own face stared back at him. "That's Ava," he whispered, his voice trembling. Isabel's eyes filled with tears. "Ethan, your daughter saved me once. Now, it's my turn to save you." The first rays of dawn crept through the cracked blinds, but there was no peace in Ethan's small apartment. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, and the low hum of engines signaled that Isabel's pursuers were closing in. Ethan paced near the window, gripping a wrench like a weapon. "You need to leave," Isabel said weakly, her voice shaking. "They're after me, not you." "If they find you here," Ethan cut her off with a firm shake of his head. "I'm not running. You're safe with me." For a moment, their eyes met, and Isabel saw something fierce and protective in him, something that reminded her of family, of loyalty, of love. But before she could speak, the front door rattled under a heavy knock. "Open up," a voice boomed. "We know she's in there." Ethan's pulse raced. He led Isabel toward the back exit, but the building was surrounded. The men burst in, guns drawn, their faces masked with intent. Without hesitation, Ethan lunged forward, swinging the wrench with every ounce of strength he had. Chaos erupted, the crash of furniture, the shout of orders, the metallic ring of struggle. Isabel ducked behind the counter, tears streaming down her face as she fumbled with the silver locket. Inside was a hidden tracker, a failsafe she'd built herself years ago. She pressed the button just as one of the attackers struck Ethan down, sending him sprawling to the floor. Within minutes, the sound of distant sirens grew louder, police and federal agents swarming the street. The armed men tried to flee, but it was too late. Isabel crawled to Ethan's side, cradling his face with trembling hands. "You risked your life for me," she whispered, her voice breaking. He managed a weak smile. Guess I'm still the guy who fixes things, he murmured. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Ethan, there's something I need to tell you, she said softly. Your late wife, Anna, she was my sister. Ethan's eyes widened in disbelief. What? She nodded through her tears. I lost her years ago. I didn't know she was gone until I saw Ava's picture at that garage. She's my niece. Ethan felt his chest tighten as tears blurred his vision. The woman he had saved, the billionaire he thought a stranger, was family. Isabel pressed her forehead to his and whispered, You didn't just save me, Ethan. You brought our family back together. And for the first time in years, Ethan let himself cry, not out of pain, but out of healing.